Welcome back. This will probably be the second to last episode. So we're up to episode 4, and I'll probably just do a brief one to finish. And then, if we had been together, we would have just done Wednesday afternoon, and so that's about about 2 hours, 3 hours. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep the videos to about that time frame for this, our first day. So when you read the book of Judges, as I have already established, you do get the idea that this God of ours really mixes with some of the craziest people and seemingly never gives up on them. Doesn't give up on you, doesn't give up on me, and even if we've done terrible things, still walks towards us. Read the book of Judges. There you've got, Jephthah, for example, who in a sense, well, not in a sense, has his daughter killed out of a misguided, well, read the chapter. But God doesn't give up. The best way to capture this is, you think of, what was the date? I've got it written here, March 15, 140. A gunman in Christchurch walks into 2 mosques where people are, in sacred worship, and he proceeds to mow them down and kills, how many did he? I think about 56 people. Tragic. And I'll never forget when Jacinda said, that she will never mention his name. And when Jacinda, and bless her, she proved to be a very capable and empathetic Prime Minister at that time. But when she said that she will never mention his name, I think we are to know him by his name. Now, I understand why she did what she did or said, but God knows Brenton Tarrant by name. And God is willing to mix it with him. Because we've talked about, and I say this not unkindly, but God does mess. God does dirt. Whoever it is that is in front of this God reaches out. And God so wants to create order in and around this person's life, such that they might flourish. And that's what we sort of got to in our last episode, that you and I are to be like God, and we're to walk towards whoever, wherever, and be the kind of people that can, create a home for people, a place, a space, a spot, such that they might flourish. We are to be these image bearers. We are to walk towards whoever, no matter what they've done, where they've been. This is who we are to be. And these are some of the places that we've got to already on day 1. And so you think of a Brenton Tarrant. God knows him by name. And God in his prison reaches out. There was another mass murderer. His name was Jeffrey Dahmer. In 1978, he started killing. And over the course of a number of years, he killed how many people here? I've got 16, killed 16 people. And then finally a detective by the name of Murphy, Philip Murphy, I believe, tracked this guy down. I mean, he was a serial killer. Tracked him down, he was charged and taken to court and given, how many, he was given 15 terms of life imprisonment. This was in 1992. That's when his court case was held. Just before he was escorted to prison, this guy Jeffrey Dahmer, Dahmer, he asked Philip Murphy, the detective, if Murphy could get his hands on a Bible so that he could take, that into prison with him. And whilst in prison, Dahmer, who had slaughtered innocent people, whilst in prison, he proceeded to read the scriptures. And in the heart of that prison, God came towards him and opened up his heart such that he saw Jesus Christ and became a disciple. I mean, God can do mess. God can do prisons. God can do murderers. God can do disorder. And he continues to create order. I mean, I just think it's, and that is my hope and that is my prayer for Brenton Tarrant. And is there a place in heaven for the Jeffrey Dahmers and the Brenton Tarrants? You bet there is. That's how inclusive our God is. That if they bow their knee and bend their heads to Jesus and come into a connection with God through Jesus, enabled by the Holy Spirit, there is a place in heaven. I think it's just amazing, the kind of God that we have. So God can do, I mean, as I said in the book of Judges, God mixed it with all sorts of crazy, wild ones. But this is the God that we have. And I thought in terms of this particular episode, to keep emphasizing, I don't know, the craziness of this God, and I say it with all respect. I mean, so this God of the First Testament, this God of the book of Judges, what does this God eventually do? Well, and so I'm going to bring up a passage of scripture here, and it's in John's Gospel, and let me read John's Gospel, chapter 1, verses 1 to 14. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made." So we explored that in our last episode, that right at the very, very, very beginning, when there was nothing, God created something out of nothing. Created that physicality, that raw material, that, and then, as we said in that last episode, arguably there was that long stage of development. But right at the beginning, God started it all. In him was life, and the life was the light of all humankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And then I want to just go down to verse 14, and it says, "And the Word became flesh." So this is God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling amongst us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. And so, do you remember I said in that last episode that that what God had started, God didn't finish. In other words, and then he created image bearers to continue to go out into the world and to do what God does. And then we finally get to this passage here in John where God comes in the person of Jesus Christ and visits this planet to continue to deal to the disorder of sin and the disorder of death. It's just incredible. So God is doing what God does. And God comes in the person of Jesus. When Jesus walked on this planet, at a particular time in a particular country, that was God walking. That's what we get in this passage here. And God comes to deal to sin, which we've already talked about, which, I don't know, it demeans people, it belittles people. They end up doing deplorable things, despicable things. So God comes to this planet, walks with a particular people at a particular time in history, in the person of Jesus, to combat sin and death, forces of disorder. The best way that, I'll come back to the big screen, there I am. The best way that I've had this described is, let me read this. It's just one side of an A4, and the guy there is Joshua Ryan Butler, and to help us capture what is going on in John chapter 1, he says this: I once had a vision of an artist painting a masterpiece. With lavish brushstrokes and bold strikes, he threw splashes of rich, beautiful colour, pouring himself into his painting with passion on a large wall-sized canvas bordered by an ornate gold frame. And when the masterpiece was complete, the artist stood back and gazed with joy upon the wonder his hands had made, as if to say, it's good. Are you getting the echoes of a previous? On the fourth day it is good, on the fifth day it is good. And then something strange, however, happened next. A small dark spot appeared in the centre of the painting. I thought, what is that? And the artist watched as the mould-like decay began to spread like a crack in the windshield that starts at a point but gradually expands its fissures and fractures into the hole. The invasive intruder began to stretch its thin, straggly arms, creeping its corruption throughout the canvas. The masterpiece was threatened with destruction or disorder. What will the artist do, I wondered. What happened next was the strangest, most bizarre thing I could have ever expected. The artist lifted his leg, extended it forward, and stepped into the painting. First his leg entered the canvas, then his torso, and finally his head. Then with a whoosh, the integration was complete. The artist stood within the work his hands had made, at the centre of the masterpiece. That's weird, I thought. But even stranger was what happened next. The mouldy rot began to attack the artist. The great painter had positioned himself in such a way that the central point of invasion was right over his heart. As the tentacles retreated from the cornered edges, they sank into the artist himself. Are you thinking the crucifixion that I told a while ago? They sank into the artist himself, blow by blow, and the creator received the corruption in the core of his masterpiece, until finally, with a whoomph, it was gone. The masterpiece was restored. The artist had absorbed the destructive power. until it was extinguished. To my surprise, however, the great painter didn't step back out of the painting. Having united his life with the canvas, he remained permanently at the centre of his restored masterpiece. In a way, however, restored doesn't seem like the right word, because the work was now even more glorious with his presence inside. He brought radiance and beauty such that the painting seemed to glow with his life. There was a sense that this was always the way it was intended to be, the artist at the centre of his painting. This was the true masterpiece. I mean, that just gathers up some of the thoughts that we've already begun to establish, that, our God mixes with these crazy people in the book of Judges. And when they do despicable, deplorable things, he doesn't give up on them, but rather he continues to mix with them. And this planet was still filled with destruction, disorder, sin, death. When God created this beautiful masterpiece, this beautiful planet, but he could see that there were forces of disorder and destruction. And so he sends his image bearers, and he sends his people. And in the book of Judges, he sent Deborah, and he sent Gideon, and he sent this person, and he sent that person. But he also sends his son. But in sending the son, Jesus, into a place of disorder, it was God walking into the place of disorder. And God took into his own being, in a mysterious way, the destructive sin that diminishes and demeans people, and took into himself death that stops people, such that people who receive Christ flourish and grow and become beautiful human beings. So the God of Genesis is the God of the book of Judges, and is the God of Jesus Christ in the New Testament. And in all these three, Genesis and Judges and John, we see similar themes. Where there is disorder, there can be order. That's what God did in Genesis. God was seeking to create order in about 1350 BC, when, nations and peoples, we're in tumultuous times, and he just kept sending people in the hope that things would get better. And then, true to form, this crazy God who doesn't ever give up on the planet, its places, or its people, in true consistent form, visits the planet at a particular time as a particular person, and continues to take on the forces of disorder, so that people and places and this planet might become like a home. I'm just trying to tie it all together so that you begin to see this incredible masterpiece, which is God at the centre of creation. It's just absolutely incredible. So, hey, there, we'll finish it there. I've got one episode, because the question that we now then need to ask is, well, so what happened after God visited the planet in Jesus? So what happened next? What's the next kind of episode? You know, what's the next part of this unfolding story? That's what we do next. Okay, I'll catch you soon. Bye.